Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast. This is Walter Hartley speaking with a special bulletin from the WINRAD Broadcasting Service. The war in the Middle East has entered its 24th day. The President of the United States says he has been talking to Iran. Iran says there have been no talks. The 48-hour ultimatum has been postponed. The head of the International Energy Agency says this is the worst energy crisis in 50 years. And in New York, 2 pilots are dead after a passenger jet struck a fire truck on the runway at LaGuardia Airport. We have a great deal to cover tonight. We take you first to our Washington correspondent, Edward James Whitmore. Edward?
Thank you, Walter. Good evening, America. In what may be the most significant diplomatic signal since this war began 24 days ago, President Trump posted on Truth Social this morning that the United States and Iran have had, in his words, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. He said that based on the tenor and tone of those talks, he has ordered the Department of Defense to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of ongoing meetings. He said his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff participated in the talks with Iranian counterparts, and that the most recent contact occurred last night. This is an extraordinary reversal. 48 hours ago, the president threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants if the Strait of Hormuz was not fully reopened by tonight. That deadline was set to expire at approximately 7:44 Eastern Time this evening. Instead, the president has extended it by 5 days and is using the word conversations for the first time since the war began. Iran's response was immediate and contradictory. The foreign ministry said there has been no dialogue between Tehran and Washington. The semi-official Mehr news agency denied any negotiations. State television displayed a graphic reading. Trump, fearing Iran's response, backed down from his 48-hour ultimatum. The Fars news agency reported that Iran's warnings about striking regional energy infrastructure led Trump to retreat. And yet multiple nations have been passing messages between the two sides over recent days, and Oman's foreign minister confirmed today that his country is mediating between them. So what we have tonight is a situation in which the president says talks are happening. Iran says they are not, and at least one intermediary says they are working intensively to make them happen. Someone is telling the truth, possibly all of them in their own way. The markets believed the president. When the Post appeared, S&P 500 futures, which had been down more than 1%, surged nearly 3%. Brent crude, which had climbed above $114 a barrel this morning, plunged more than 13% before settling around $104. American crude fell below $92. Even with the decline, oil remains more than a third higher than it was before the war began. But the president's postponement applies only to power plants and energy infrastructure. He did not mention a ceasefire. He did not mention Israel. And Israel's strikes continued today without pause. Back to you, Walter.
Thank you, Edward. We go now to our foreign affairs correspondent, Theodore Charles Bennett. Theodore?
Thank you, Walter. Before we discuss the diplomacy further, I must report on a warning issued today that places this entire conflict in historic context. The head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, told the National Press Club of Australia that the world is now facing an energy crisis worse than the 2 oil shocks of the 1970s combined. He said the oil crises of 1973 and 1979 together cost the world about 10 million barrels per day and caused major recessions. As of today, he said, we have lost 11 million barrels per day. More than 2 major oil shocks put together. He said the loss of natural gas supply is nearly double what Europe lost after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He said 40 energy assets across 9 countries have been severely or very severely damaged. And he said no country will be immune to the effects of this crisis if it continues in this direction. He called it a major, major threat to the global economy. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the war has not slowed. Israel launched what it called extensive strikes on Tehran early this morning, with powerful explosions reported in the east of the capital. The IRGC said it would respond in kind to any attack on Iran's power plants, vowing to strike Israeli power plants as well as electricity and water infrastructure across the Gulf. Iran's Defense Council warned that any attack on Iran's coasts or islands would trigger the deployment of mines across all Gulf sea lanes, which would effectively block maritime traffic far beyond the narrow strait itself. Iran also threatened to completely close the Strait of Hormuz and strike desalination facilities critical for drinking water in the Gulf states. Former Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, the Iranian opposition figure, called on Trump and Netanyahu to target the military while sparing civilian infrastructure, saying Iranians will need it to rebuild their country.
Theodore, what is the situation across the region tonight?
Walter, the Gulf is bracing for whatever comes next. Saudi Arabia declared many of Iran's diplomatic staff, including its military attaché, persona non grata, and ordered them to leave within 24 hours, following a similar move by Qatar earlier in the week. The UAE said its air defenses are responding to incoming missile and drone threats from Iran, with an Indian national suffering minor injuries from falling debris in Abu Dhabi. Kuwait filed a formal protest with the International Civil Aviation Organization over what it called airspace violations and attacks on its airport facilities by Iran. 7 people were killed in a helicopter crash in Qatari territorial waters, including 4 Qatari armed forces personnel and 3 Turkish nationals. Iraq extended its airspace closure for another 72 hours. Bahrain's air defenses continue intercepting missiles and drones. And the Islamic Resistance in Iraq claimed 21 attacks on American bases in the past 24 hours alone. In Lebanon, Israel struck a critical bridge over the Litani River, severing the main connection between southern Lebanon and the rest of the country. Settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank has surged since the war began, with the Israeli human rights group Yesh Din reporting an average of 10 attacks per day since the start of March. Israel's own chief of staff called the attacks morally and ethically reprehensible and said they cause extraordinary strategic damage. The UK's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, called an emergency meeting today as the economic fallout from the war mounts. China's special envoy for the Middle East said this is a war that should never have happened and called for an immediate halt to all military action. And Senator Lisa Murkowski said she is considering pushing for Congress to vote to authorize the war if American troops are sent into Iran on the ground. And Walter, one more note. Oman's foreign minister posted today that whatever your view of Iran, this war is not of their making, and warned that it is already causing widespread economic problems that promise to get much worse. That is the mediator, speaking publicly, choosing a side. That tells you something about how the people closest to these negotiations view what has happened. Back to you, Walter.
Thank you, Theodore. Before we go to Dorothy, I must report on a tragedy here at home. 2 pilots are dead tonight after an Air Canada passenger jet struck a Port Authority fire rescue truck on the runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport late last night. The plane, Air Canada Flight 8646, had just landed from Montreal, carrying 72 passengers and 4 crew members. The fire truck had been cleared by air traffic control to cross the runway to respond to an unrelated incident on a United Airlines flight that had reported a cabin odor. Seconds after clearing the truck to cross, a controller was heard frantically ordering it to stop. The collision occurred at approximately 11:40 last night. Air traffic control recordings captured a controller saying, "I messed up." Both pilots were killed. 41 people were taken to hospitals, including 2 fire officers from the truck. 32 have been released, but several remain with serious injuries. LaGuardia Airport is closed until at least 2 o'clock this afternoon. More than 500 flights have been canceled. The National Transportation Safety Board has launched an investigation. The tragedy comes as airports across the country are already under strain from a partial government shutdown that has left Transportation Security Administration officers working without pay. Ladies and gentlemen, 24 days. The president says he is talking to Iran. Iran says he is not. Oman says it is mediating. The ultimatum has been postponed. Oil crashed 13% on the news and is still up more than a third since the war began. The head of the International Energy Agency says this is worse than the 1970s. 11 million barrels a day lost. 40 energy assets damaged across 9 countries. Iran threatens to mine the entire Persian Gulf. Israel strikes bridges in Lebanon and bombs Tehran. And a mediator who is supposed to be neutral says publicly that this war is not Iran's doing. We do not know what the next 5 days will bring. We shall continue to bring you developments as they occur. This has been a special bulletin from the WINRAD Broadcasting Service. I am Walter Hartley. Stay close to your radio.
Hello, ladies. This is Dorothy Wilson. I am going to do something a little different tonight. No recipe. Tonight I want to talk to you about your house. because I think some of you have been so busy keeping up with the news and worrying about the prices and taking care of everyone else that your house has started to slip a little, and I am not judging you. Mine has too. So here's what I want you to do tomorrow. Just one room. Pick the room that is bothering you the most. For most of you, that is the kitchen, and I want you to spend 20 minutes on it. Set a timer, 20 minutes. Here is the order. First, clear every surface, the counters, the table, the top of the stove. Put everything that does not belong in the kitchen back where it goes. Pile up the dishes. Second, wash the dishes, all of them. If you have a dishwasher, load it and run it. If you do not, fill the sink with the hottest water you can stand, add soap and wash them in order. Glasses first, then plates, then pots. Third, wipe down every surface with a hot, wet cloth. Counters, stovetop, table. Fourth, sweep the floor. You do not need to mop it tonight, just sweep. And fifth, take out the trash. That is it. 5 steps, 20 minutes. And when you are done, stand in the doorway and look at it. Really look. Because a clean kitchen does something to a woman's mind that nothing else can. It makes you feel like you are in control of something. And right now, with the world being what it is, that feeling is worth more than gold. Tomorrow morning, when you walk in there, and it is clean and quiet and ready for you, you will thank yourself. I promise you that. 20 minutes, ladies. Set the timer. You take care of your house, and your house takes care of you. Good night, and God bless.